Welcome back to Built to Ship, the podcast where we go behind the scenes with founders and product leaders shipping real AI products into the world. Today, I'm joined by Justin, co-founder and CTO of Outdoorithm, a mission-driven platform that helps people discover campgrounds on America's public lands, free with powerful tools and real-time availability alerts, and really excited to talk about their AI assistant, Camp Sage, for personalized campground recommendations. Justin, great to have you on.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's start with the founding story. What were you up to before Outdoorithm? What got you the idea, and why'd you set out to build this great product?
Yeah, so I actually have an engineering degree, but went into social impact and ended up at google.org for a decade. So I was doing sort of tech philanthropy at google.org, leading their Americas team. So all of our philanthropy in North America and several countries in Latin America. And in the course of doing all of that philanthropy and watching amazing social entrepreneurs build really cool things with technology, I started to get inspired myself. And I'm giving out capital and partnering with great social impact founders. And sometime in 2023, especially right after ChatGPT sort of released their initial tool that you could actually interact with in the UI, of course, at Google invented GPTs. And so I knew that these things that were available and had gotten created, but not available to consumers like myself. And so when GPT launched, I started playing with it and realized that I could start to write Python scripts myself. I mean, obviously I'm an engineer, so I had done a little bit of coding, but I wasn't a software developer. And so that was not a skill set I really had. And I started to use ChatGPT to write some Python scripts. And after I figured out how to write Python scripts, I started to write some JavaScript and realized I could create websites. And around this time, my wife and I had this idea for really engaging more urban families on public land and camping. And we have four daughters. My oldest is 16, my youngest is 4. So kind of have the whole range, and we camp a lot. Oftentimes 30 plus nights a year, and kind of use our home base in Oakland. We'll oftentimes have a reservation on multiple weekends a month. And we'll be out at Half Moon Bay, or we'll be down at New Brighton near Santa Cruz, or we'll go up to Gersel Cove at Salt Point. And we're just kind of constantly throughout the year just taking little breaks from city life and getting out and being immersed in nature. And being from the city, we were struggling to convince other folks to come out with us, especially families who are sort of underrepresented in those spaces and maybe don't have an identity with camping or outdoor recreation. And it was a lot harder to convince people to come with us than we thought. And so we kind of had this idea of how could we reduce the friction, make it easier, make it more accessible. And I think the big 3 questions that we know people are asking is, where do I go? What do I bring? And will I belong when I get there? And so we were really thinking, like, could we build a platform, particularly on those first 2 questions, to kind of answer like, hey, let us help you figure out where to go. Let's help you figure out what to bring. And then that question of belonging is really one of identity. And so we knew we could do a little bit of branding and marketing, but we actually created a nonprofit called Outdoorithm Collective that organizes group trips for people who have never been and struggle to see themselves in those spaces. And so, yeah, we're 11 group trips in. We built outdoorithm.com originally just with like traditional search. One of the cool things about public campgrounds is even if you take like Oakland, California, you go within 2 to 3 hours of here, there's hundreds of campgrounds, but they're managed by so many different agencies. The National Park Service, the National Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, California State Parks, Sonoma County State Parks, the list goes on. East Bay Regional Parks. There's so many managers. Every single one of them uses a different reservation system. And it's a perfect problem for AI. It's just a bunch of really unstructured information that exists everywhere and nowhere. And AI is incredibly good at structuring unstructured information. So we had the aspiration to have a conversational tool from the very beginning that people could very easily kind of sign into. We originally thought maybe we'll use RAG and vector embeddings. We took the time to vector embed a lot of our stuff. The prototyping was just okay. It wasn't great. And then agents became all the rage, and we started experimenting with agents, and we said, this is it. This is the thing that's actually going to really make the difference. And so we've been super excited to be able to build an agentic conversational tool and really be able to help people figure out very quickly and easily what would be a good camping trip for them.
Amazing. Love that. And I've got to say, I totally understand that what you mentioned about like people not knowing where do they go, what do they bring, like what do I expect, that can be a big barrier. I
Yes.
was lucky enough to grow up going camping. My family would take us
Yes.
sometimes like to Yosemite or Leo Carrillo, where I'm from LA. But I have
Yes, Leo
friends,
Carrillo,
yeah,
yes. It's
I love it.
great. It's
But
great. Those are
I have
great
friends that
places.
like they're, 29 years old and they haven't been camping ever.
Yeah.
And they've, we've brought them out so we could show them like, okay, it is a lot to figure out like, what's the weather going to be like? Do I need
Yes.
like, even knowing to like choose a flat place to put your tent
Yes.
down, like all these little
Yes.
things that,
Yeah.
can
That
be like
little,
barriers.
that little mud patch there, that means that
Yeah.
when it rains, it's really wet. So don't put your,
Yeah.
that type of information. I was actually doing some research for a group trip that we're going to hopefully take folks up this summer. There's this campground called Emigrant Group Camp just north of Truckee. And I was reading through the reviews, and there was this beautiful review in there from a family that said, "We've been coming here for 46 years and it's our annual tradition." And I both thought, like, how beautiful and wonderful. And so much of this knowledge is just passed down,
Yeah.
and if you didn't grow up in a family, my family grew up camping, sounds like yours did too. If you don't have that kind of knowledge passed down, it just feels really inaccessible. And so, with the way that technology is now, I'm super excited because I think it's going to open up some of this sort of what used to just be insider knowledge in a family or a tight friend group to lots of people. And we're not, just to be clear for all the camping purists out there, we're not going to reveal like secret off the grid camping spots. These are just front country established campgrounds on public land that really should be the entry point for anybody who wants to sort of get out and do immersive experiences in nature. And then if they get comfortable there, they can go backpacking and do dispersed camping. And we're not going to reveal people's secret spots. These are all
I love
super well established front country public campgrounds that we're just trying to introduce people to.
I love the combination of like, you're using technology in a world that's getting, like you mentioned, we're super urbanized. We have tech everywhere, like in our
Right.
faces, etc. It's great to actually use it for a positive thing, which is to get you back out into nature. And it's a good example of like when you use it thoughtfully, there can be benefits that go beyond just like staring at your screen. It actually might save you time,
That's
that
right.
you could have spent looking through all these sites yourself and all this stuff and get you closer to actually taking that leap.
That's
I want
right.
to
I
get
think, yeah.
into a bit. Sorry, I just wanted to
Yeah,
really
go
dive
ahead.
into something else you mentioned that was interesting. You mentioned RAG, and then you mentioned that you guys tried it out and found that it wasn't working well, and you switched over to an agentic framework. I think this is a great thing for audience to hear because there's so many buzzwords with a new technology. Everyone's
Right.
heard RAG. Everyone thinks like, oh, I just need to, do RAG because I was told to do it. But the right engineering mindset, which obviously you have as your background, is like, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to
Right.
prototype it, see if it works or not. If not, there might be a different approach that works. Can you tell us a little bit about like just one or two things that didn't work with the RAG system and what's different about the agentic system that works better?
Yeah, so we tried RAG, and we tried, when you think about how might you vector embed all the information around a campground, it's going to be some combination of metadata and embeddings, because some people are like, I absolutely have to have a shower, and that's just like a Boolean yes no, like, does this campground have a shower or not? But then there's more kind of esoteric things like, I want good scenery, like I want it to be scenic, or like I want it to be family friendly. I think we just had a really hard time figuring out how to write like a semantic similarity algorithm that could really capture that nuance well. So we tried it and it worked okay, but I think the litmus test was always like, okay, go back to ChatGPT and just type the same prompt into ChatGPT. And the truth is, for the average, just sort of like campground search, ChatGPT is kind of okay. And so we were building, a pretty, what struck me as like quite complex. I'm like, what is, okay, semantic similarity and the RAG, and I'm doing cosine, what, the two
Hmm.
formulas, and we use Supabase as our backend. So I'm like,
Nice.
okay, how do I, I'm like, I use Pinecone at first, and I'm like, okay, I think I can just do this. There's a lot. It's just a lot to figure out. And at the end of the day, you have this kind of heavy process. And I would go into ChatGPT and I'd be like, I think ChatGPT is just as good as what I'm getting out of my tool. And so
Hmm.
I just didn't feel like it was worth it. I when with the agentic piece, so I use Claude Code quite a bit for my development, and that, like I said, I have an engineering degree, but I'm not a software developer, so I'm not going to be able to create code just as natively as somebody who's been a software developer. And well, the great thing now is that they have plugins, right? And like Claude has like a Claude agentic SDK plugin. And so I just like on a Sunday, in morning, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give myself a day. I know agentic is all the rage, and I understand conceptually why it's quite powerful. And I'm using an agentic coding tool like Claude Code, so I know what it can do. It's amazing that it can find and grep my whole code base so quickly and understand context. So let me see if I can just give myself a day. And it didn't even take me a full day. It was more like a half a day, especially with the
Wow.
plugin. And I was able to structure it. And the great thing about the plugins is that it's just kind of prompting you and taking you through a structured process. And we needed sub agents to figure out like the weather, right? Like
Hmm.
we have a lot. We've scraped for every single public campground in the US. We've scraped 52-week average, like 5-year trailing weather data. So every week of
Nice.
the year, high temp, low temp, chance of precipitation. So it needs to access that data to be able to figure out, is the user in a weather window that's going to make sense for them. We have things like hazards for every campground. So it's like, is there sneaker waves on this beach that you're
Hmm.
planning on going to? Or is there poison oak all over the place? Maybe you don't want to bring your little kids. And so it needs to be able to know kind of like, okay, if the person's saying family friendly, I need to like access that sub agent that's going to like research the hazards that are present in these campgrounds and make sure I filter those out. And then there's all these sort of like amenity based things that I mentioned, like, showers or bike paths, or, is there swimming here? Like all of those kind of Boolean things. And it was just beautiful. Like the first time I turned on the conversational, interface, I just deploy on Vercel and simple front
Hmm.
end stuff. And I deployed it. I was expecting it to, kind of have a lot of errors and not really work. And it worked beautifully. And then we camp so much that I have a good sense for like,
Yeah.
is this recommending the right
You have
campgrounds?
the
And
taste. Yeah.
it was the first time, yeah, I have the taste. So it was the first time that our tool had put out something that I was like, this is better than what ChatGPT is going to give you. And it's going to give
Amazing.
you all the context, because we're working within our own database and it's authoritative. We know like if there are
Right.
showers or bike paths and things like that. It's not guessing just based on its sort of training context. And so it was kind of magical, honestly. And I remember I called my wife over and I'm like, you won't believe this, but it just works. We started typing all these prompts into it, and it just started putting out great recommendations, and we were off to the races.
That's a really great story and an example of how um, AI is transforming how products are built, because it's pretty cool that you have an engineering background but not specifically software engineering. But
Yeah.
really, it sounds like to me maybe the more important thing is your camping background. Like,
Yes,
what good looks like, what are the questions you should
that's
ask
right.
or someone might ask. And so if another engineer, a software engineer, was building this, and maybe they didn't go through the trouble of like setting up RAG first because they knew that another system would be better, but they
Yeah.
don't know if they can't actually like evaluate whether the
Yes.
system's good or not without going out there and talking to people like you. So I love that like the
Yeah.
users and the experts are now becoming the builders of the specific products they want to see in the world.
Yes. That's
One thing I
huge.
want to dive in on though, because this is really helpful. I think our audience will love to hear. Like you mentioned, sub agents, right?
Yep.
How, first of all, just to highlight what you shared for everyone in case they missed it, like a good paradigm, it sounds like, for when to use a subagent is if it does a specific task, like
Yes.
look up the weather. You want that accuracy to be high. If you give
Yes.
an agent like this is the one thing you need to do, it's going to be better at doing that thing, right? Look up the
Yes.
weather or look through your internal database about whether there's showers or not. Um,
Yes.
how many subagents do you have in your conversational AI system? And there's no rule that works for every business, but like what has worked
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah, I think we have 6 right now. Yeah, there's one for the weather, there's one for the hazards. We actually have this green book feature that really looks at, sort of the overall, welcoming kind of like spirit of the campground. We've taken all the public reviews of these public campgrounds, like almost 2 million public reviews, and we've actually put them through an AI reasoning model to look at Um, is there any kind of complaints of discrimination, or are there complaints of people feeling uncomfortable? Actually, the most common complaint is actually from people with physical disabilities. You might not be surprised. Folks just complaining about accessibility, or feeling like their accessibility needs weren't accommodated, or they have like a service like dog with them, and the rangers are giving them a hard time about it, or and so we even that like we have like a sub agent that'll look at if someone's saying I really want a place that's family friendly or welcoming or whatever. If you have a specific identity like or a need like a physical disability, like so we have, yeah, I think we have 6 agents, sub agents at this point. And I saw that Claude is now has these skills, and I'm kind of
Hmm.
like, oh, maybe I need to be even thinking about new framework, and these should be skills rather than sub agents. So we're kind of just constantly evaluating it, but it works quite well at this point. And so I'm kind of just excited to get it in users' hands and get the feedback and see if folks feel like it needs further refinement. But I feel pretty good about where it is at the moment.
Amazing. Well, I know you mentioned you don't really have a solve with the product for the belonging thing, which is why you've created this other sort of arm. It sounds like of Outdoor Rhythm, but it sounds like you're actually solving a little bit for that. Like
Trying to as much as you can. Yeah.
if you have this green book agent that's saying like, hey, this is not a space that's comfortable for people with accessibility struggles, like, okay,
Yes.
now they know not to go there and they don't have to like deal with that,
Yes.
frustration and
Yes.
discrimination there. So that's cool. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask on, you mentioned showing this to users. Obviously, you're a user yourself, which is great. So I
Yep.
assume like when it comes to testing this before you put it into production, before you deploy it live, I'm sure you try it out locally. Maybe
Yep.
you have a set of questions you ask or things you check that you're like, I know this campground well. Let's see
Right.
if it answers this question right.
Yeah.
When it comes to now shipping this to production, how long have you been live? How many users do you have using the AI agent per month? Do you find that it's like people avoid it or they want to gravitate towards it? What are you seeing so far? And then I want to get in a little bit more into like how do you see what they're using it for and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's been in production for about 3 weeks now. I partner with this firm, Full Scale. They're out of the Philippines, and they've got full-time developers that I work with on my team. So we sort of torture tested it with them. I mean, I sort of built it, used it, like you said, used my own taste, get gut check, like, is this working? Obviously, there's a lot of like safety that you got to build in. We didn't want people to be able to jailbreak this thing. It should only
Yeah.
be answering questions about where to camp, and that type of thing. And the developers that I partner with at Full Scale were really helpful, and sort of that's what I sent them. I was like, here's the prototype. It's working. I think the features are good, and I need you to sort of torture test this thing and make sure that it's truly ready for users to jump into it. We have about 5,000 active daily users, or not daily users, monthly users on the platform. And to be completely candid, I haven't actually pulled the stats yet on the usage. So I just know anecdotally what people are telling me,
Nice.
which is that, oh my God, this thing is amazing. I had a colleague of mine who was looking for cabins. Like, he was like, oh, my family's not quite ready to
Hmm.
do the camping thing. And so he told me that he went in and searched for, I want to camp in cabins. And I'd never done that. I actually didn't do that search. And he told me it came up with Pinnacles National Park and Steep Ravine. And I was like, oh, perfect. Those are like, if you're in the Bay Area and you want to go camp in a cabin on a public campground, those are exactly where it should be recommending. So I think it's just been really good and accessible for people who, like, again, are really intimidated to get out there. And it's such a simple, easy, just use some natural language, put it out there, and is going to give you an immediate recommendation to take the barriers down. So most of it has just been anecdotal, but I know I need to do the actual, like, let me get into Supabase and look at I am tracking usage. I just haven't looked at it yet.
That honestly, I think that is yet another takeaway that I think people might miss. They'll be used to traditional sort of software products where it's like, did they click this button or not? But with a
Yeah.
conversational AI, it is a lot more about like, what is that qualitative information, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I searched for a cabin and it gave me these things and it did it right. There's not a
Yep.
lot of like analytical tools you can do to just see like,
No.
did that
Yeah.
exact conversation work well, right? You can see how many people are using it, but like,
Yeah.
are they enjoying it? Did it answer
Right.
their questions correctly? You're going to need to
That's
talk
right.
to users. So
That's right. That's right.
that's great. Well, we're coming up on time. I want to make sure that I get a chance to put your website on the screen so folks can check out Camp Sage and check out Outdoor Rhythm.
Yeah.
Maybe my last question is like, what's next for Outdoor Rhythm? You can share a bit of that as I put the website up on the screen, and then how can people get, I assume they just come to the website and try it out, but is there anything else, any other place to follow you or the company, etc.?
Yeah, you can definitely follow us on social media, Outdoorithm. We have an Instagram channel, we have a LinkedIn channel. Yeah, we're really excited. I think the core technical build, as an engineer, you're always tempted to sort of build more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So more features, more features, more features. I think the feature set is actually pretty solid. Like we have an agentic search tool, we have a traditional search tool. There's you can browse the map if you'd like to. We have the green book feature, so if you're really concerned about whether these campgrounds are welcoming spaces for you, we have the sort of green book for all the campsites, and we analyze the reviews. I think there's a lot of work to be done on the gear and equipment. You'll see we have like an entire feature as you scroll down there. It'll be highlighted just around like how we recommend specific pieces of equipment to people. And I think there's actually an agentic opportunity there too. We're
Mm-hmm.
just now in the process of structuring our backend data around the gear to be able to be, to have the metadata around like what season is this sleeping bag good for?
Yeah.
And, like for individual pieces of equipment, like what type of terrain, like if you're in the desert, does this thing work as well as if you're in the redwoods? Like you want to make sure that all of those tools are for the gear pieces are well aligned. And so I'm doing some work right now to kind of structure the data. I'm using like Perplexity to do a little bit of web searching and grab a little bit of extra information about these pieces of equipment that we recommend. And then I'd love to be able to actually real time recommend as people are talking about or are searching for specific campgrounds, like here's the specific equipment that we would recommend for you, or give you a chance to interact with an agentic tool and be able to have like specific recommendations. And we have a cool partnership with REI. My wife, Sally, is the CEO of Outdoorithm and is an REI Embark Fellow. She was in their accelerator. And so
Awesome.
we're doing a lot of work around the gear and equipment and recommendations with them, and maybe even some in-store activations where we'd be able to kind of
Super cool.
help them real time. And then we have a marketplace idea where we want to be able to feature some of the other entrepreneurs who are building really cool products in the outdoor space that might not be listed widely in other venues. We'd love to build a marketplace for them to feature that. So those are a lot of gear stuff is kind of where we're headed and what we're focused on.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, makes sense. You get the core product right, which is show people these campgrounds, find the right thing for them, and now you're solving that long tail of that hump to get over of like, well, I want to go camping now. I know where to go, but like, what do I bring? So that
That's
sounds like
it.
a great next
And of
step.
course,
And
as founders, like we got to figure out how to make revenue. And so
yep,
you saw there's a little bit of advertising, a little bit of affiliate links, but we think that the equipment is probably actually our longer term source of like sustainable revenue. So that's important to figure out for that reason too.
that's great. And it's
Yeah.
always great when you have something that provides value to the user, that you can extract value on as well. And it sounds
Yeah.
like this is a place where they will, obviously the next step is, where do I get equipment? What equipment do I bring?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
awesome. Well, Justin, thanks for coming on the show. It was great learning about Outdoor Rhythm and everything y'all are doing there. And I think the biggest takeaway I want to leave folks with is, you don't have to come from a direct software engineering background. You actually are now much more able to build products that you're an expert in, that you have
That's right.
taste for. And it doesn't matter if you're using like the buzzword framework of whether that's RAG or MCP or whatever. You really need to build what works for your users, right? So thanks again for sharing all those insights, and I'm looking forward to following along and trying out Outdoor Rhythm for my next camping excursion. So
Thanks so much, Tyler. Appreciate the opportunity to share the story and yeah, be able to share these tools are incredible. And I agree, like folks who have taste and proximity and understand their space, it's really a powerful time to be able to jump into the builder's seat. And I hope more people kind of get the confidence to just take the leap and try it out. I think people would be surprised how far you can get, even if you're not a traditional software developer. So definitely encourage people to take the leap and try it out. But thanks so much, Tyler. I appreciate it.
amazing. Thanks, Justin. Talk soon.